Okay, hi Anthony. We finally managed to get the right draft. This is a new system I'm using. You have my voice talking you through your draft. What I've done is I've read through and I'm sort of highlighting silly grammatical errors or editing in red and sort of uh, ideas or technical points in yellow. Now, the first thing I must say, Anthony, is that you are over 300 words over the word count, so you're going to need to do some serious cutting. 1,000 words is the limit. You are being much too wordy. This is a report. It's an analysis report, so you need to be much more concise and you need to be using the language of analysis much more effectively. You, along with I think 23 out of the 24 students in the class have not actually referred to the README document that is in the first week that we started this task on sector. Please make sure you read it. It will really improve the way that you are analysing the advertisements. Okay, so I'm going to start talking you through form. Okay, so you start off okay. With the idea of the unlimited exposure that print media gets as opposed to radio and television, which is really good. Well done. Now, when you say the amount of viewers, again, remember this is a media analysis. So use the language of the technical language for media. So you're talking about target audience or consumers. So you need to go through and check that throughout your draft. Now, Leave Nothing campaign, I think that should have a capital letter throughout. And silly mistakes, colours of Benetton needs capitals. And I'm not going to keep on pointing that out. That's your responsibility from now on. Now you're saying they were both featured in magazines and you need to write on billboards across the world. Now I have a bit of an issue with this because the Nike ad is featuring Adrian Peterson, who's a running back. I have no idea what that means. Obviously, it's a position in American football for Minnesota. He's holding an American football. So honestly, I don't think that this ad was released all over the world because in the UK, they wouldn't give two hoots. I think most people in Australia wouldn't give two hoots. So I think you need to go back and double check that I have a feeling that you'll find that this was an American advertisement. Was it published at a time to coincide with a championships or something? That's for you to find out. With this ad, I want to know what date it was published because I think it's really significant and we will come on to that. So that's fine. But when you say that it was featured in magazines, do you know that they were featured in magazines? And if so, which ones? Examples and billboards across the world. I think you're being much too general here in multiple countries. Perhaps Benetton more than Nike, but that's a key difference between the brands. But between the advertisements is one is advertising to an American audience, while the other is trying to reach a more global audience. So again, you need to be very clear about this, and I'm going to leave that up to you to double check. What you need to show your understanding of in form is that the bus shelters and the billboards, where would they be positioned? Show your understanding. They've got to be positioned in areas where there's going to be high footfall. That's consumer footfall. They're not going to be on billboards in the middle of the desert. They're going to be, particularly the Benetton, near shopping malls, or they're going to be strategically placed on high streets or in shopping malls where consumers, where there's a Benetton shop nearby. So you just need to tidy that up a bit. Purpose. I think you've gone too much onto the sort of ideas as opposed to showing your understanding that the purpose of advertising is to build a desire or to build on a value within the target audience that makes them want to be able to remember the product and that makes the product memorable and makes them want to purchase the product. So that was all in the PowerPoint. You might just want to refresh your memory on that. And yes, they do this through appealing to or building an interest or desire for the product by appealing to the desires or values that are common to us all, but will appeal particularly to the target audience. And I think that's particularly relevant with the United Colours of Benetton advertisement. So I think you just want this here is just very poorly expressed. Why do you keep saying unto, like you've suddenly become a priest? The idea of world peace to the audience. But what you're saying here is that Benetton are really, they're clever, but I think you say later that it backfired. They're using ethos and pathos to to provoke their target audience, or to connect with a target audience of young, more politically aware 21st century consumers. And I think you need to make that clear. They don't value their product clothing as more than a piece of fabric. Or what you're saying is, are they going to purchase it as a statement? I think you need to clarify between the two. Now you're trying to use comparative language, but not juxtaposed. Just say, in comparison, comma, Nike's Leave Nothing campaign, look at your editing, and you say here, needs not to continue to use advertisements to spread awareness of their brand, but to endorse new products unto the audience. So Anthony, I think you can tell that you need to go back and look at what you're writing. Read it out loud. So just sum up what the purpose, they share the purpose, which is to build a connection with their target audience. One uses ethos and pathos. That's the Benetton ad. And I would probably come up here and actually label them, give them each a title. So Nike Leave Nothing, ad 1, and Benetton, United Colours of Benetton, ad 2. And then you can actually just be referring to advertisement 1 and advertisement 2, rather than constantly having to say, you can mix it in, Nike, Benetton, ad 1, ad 2. So you need to tidy that up. Target audience, you need to tidy this up too, because now again, Benetton and Nike, however, have the same desire to inform and convince the audience to purchase their product. That should have been in your purpose. Choose specific products to appeal to specific audiences. What do you mean here? What's your editing? Now you're saying that Benetton's advertisement emphasizes cultural and religious understanding specifically to appeal to an adult demographic, to late teenager. Well, I think the clue, and I did say this in the lesson, often the clue to the target audience is in the age and the look of the models used. So I think this is very much a teenage audience, and I think you're looking at perhaps 15 to 18-year-olds, at a push 20, but this isn't targeted to adults because of the age of the models. They're not over 20, and I think that's pretty clear. And also by the body language, it's very much sort of teenagers slinging their arms around each other, which adults tend not to do. So you need to be more specific. I don't know whether you've actually gone through the task sheet and the headings there, because under each of those were the specific points to help you be more specific under each title. So you have to say, the target demographic, what is the variety in their age, culture, gender, race, education, political persuasion, religious beliefs, affluence, and how can you tell? So with this, by looking at, here you should be saying, by looking at the models used and the costume that they are dressed in and what that represents politically, culturally, and religiously, you could say that this is very much geared to a more culturally, politically aware teenager, because it's not your average teenager who is following the news. So it is using, or perhaps just to get their target audience thinking and asking questions about this. Now, I'm not sure that it is known as a hipster brand. As far as I was aware, Benetton is quite a sort of, it's actually the opposite to a hipster brand. But I think with this campaign, they were trying to change their image as being rather classic European look to be more up to date in order to compete with brands such as Zara and H&M. Now you're saying here targets adolescent males interested in American football, but you're not. Go back to the annotated Adidas ad that I gave you all a copy of my annotations to have an example of how you discuss the target audience. So I say that Adidas is generally targeted a more youthful audience, and in order to compete with Nike, etc., the advertisement is targeting young male soccer players, but is not confined to this audience. So you're targeting, and I don't know about American football. You need to work this one out. It's not just that they're interested, it's the soccer players. But it's not actually advertising a boot, is it? Or a ball. It's actually just advertising all of these clothing products. So it's, and I think the target audience is an older teenager to sort of late 20s because, again, of the age. But it's not confined to that, as you say. So you're going to need to tidy that up. Now, social context. I think you've actually rather missed the mark on this. So lots of poor editing here. I think the key here is, you need to find out what year this advertisement was released and what is the relevance of that. The fact that the models are dressed in Arab and Jewish costume, to me, is signaling that this was probably a time when the tensions between Israel and Palestine were at their height. And you need to check the dates. You need to show your understanding of that social context, because, you need to check where it was advertised, because I think, I don't know if that wouldn't have been advertised in Australia because we're so far away from it. So you need to be looking at this. What was politically and religiously relevant at the time? Was it part of a campaign that had a lot more religions being juxtaposed together? So you haven't actually shown your understanding of the political context, and therefore why those two religions have been chosen. And you go into a little bit of camera angles, text and branding. You don't need to in the social context. So this is an area where you could be cutting. Now, again, I don't need to know about that. It's just about the social context. When was this released? Was it at a time? Was it in the middle of a American football championship or something? So you need to go back and have another look at this section.